Item number 36.
Item 36, introduction of an ordinance approving zone amendment ZA 17-00001 and local coastal program amendment LCPA 17-00001, amending Article 30, Section 3006 of the 1992 zoning ordinance and downtown zoning ordinance, and adoption of a resolution establishing the amended text of Article 30, Section 3006 as part of the implementing document of the local coastal program to revise accessory dwelling unit regulations in conformance with Government Section Code 65852.2.
Open the public hearing. Disclosures.
This has been staff and some public.
Staff and public.
Staff and public, including emails.
Yeah, public comments and emails and staff.
Okay. Sir.
Good evening, Honorable Deputy Mayor and Council members. I'm Rob D. Mahowski, Associate Planner with the Planning Division. This request is a zone amendment and a local coastal program amendment. To amend Article 30, Section 3006 of the zoning ordinance and also part of the implementing document of the local coastal program to revise the accessory dwelling unit regulations in accordance with the government code. An accessory dwelling unit is defined as an attached or detached residential dwelling unit which provides independent living for one or more individual and will include amended provisions for living, eating, cooking, and sanitation, and it also to be located on the same parcel as a single-family residence. An ADU, for short, may also serve as a rental unit or be occupied by family members, guests, and so on. In response to the housing crisis, the state legislature enacted two accessory dwelling unit bills, SB 1069 and AB 2299. They went into effect on January 1st, 2017, and are intended to reduce regulatory barriers and cost, streamline approval, and expand the potential capacity of ADUs. The legislation made several key changes to the ADU law. Existing ordinances are null and void. A city or county either has to adopt a compliant ordinance or comply with the minimum regulations mandated by state law. Unit size and location, an ADU shall be no larger than 1,200 square feet, and if it's an attached unit, no more than 50% of the existing house. Setbacks, a ADU, if it's a converted an existing structure, no setback shall be required for that structure. Previously, most jurisdictions require a conversion of a garage must comply with all current setback requirements. Parking, the law allows parking within setback areas in tandem configuration and on approved driveways. The law introduces a parking waiver, and there's 5 circumstances in which a property may qualify for such waiver. An ADU would not have to provide any on-site parking if an ADU is located within 1/2 mile of public transit, is located within an architecturally or historically significant district, is part of an existing structure or constructed within a detached structure, if an on-street parking permit is not provided for the occupant of the ADU, and if there is a car share vehicle within 1/2 block of the property. For impact fees, an ADU shall not be considered new development for the assessment of impact fees, including water and sewer, and any fees assessed must be proportionate to the burden that the ADU will place upon services. In response to state mandates, staff has prepared a revised accessory dwelling unit ordinance that will be in Article 30 of the zoning ordinance as follows. An ADU shall be is considered consistent with the general plan and the underlying zone district. They shall be permitted in residential and agricultural zone district on a property developed with a single family home, and they may also be developed with a new single family home concurrently. An ADU is a ministerial permit no public hearing or use permit is required. It's subject to a building permit and must be approved within 120 days from the date of application. If it's located within the coastal zone, it would be subject to the local coastal program and would require an administrative coastal permit. And there's also a new provision where if the existing home does not have fire sprinklers shall not be required for the new accessory dwelling. For unit size and type, the unit may be attached, detached, or constructed within the footprint of an existing home or a detached structure. The maximum for a detached ADU will be 1,200 square feet, and an attached it will be 1,200 square feet up to a maximum of, or 50% of the home, whichever is less. And the type of construction will also include an efficiency unit or a manufactured home. An efficiency unit is typically a smaller studio type unit that is constructed within the confines of the existing home or a detached structure. If a garage is converted with an ADU, the city ordinance, Article 31 of the zoning ordinance, requires that replacement parking be provided on site in the form of an enclosed garage. The unit shall have to comply with setbacks and all the development standards of the underlying zone district for height and lot coverage. For parking, staff is recommending one space per bedroom. State law does allow the implementation of either one per bedroom or one per unit. We are recommending one parking space per bedroom. Parking will be permitted in front, side, and rear setbacks. If it's within the front yard, parking has to be on an approved driveway, or if it's a side yard, there has to be a 11-foot clear space that is not blocking any ingress or egress to the home, such as windows. And if no more than 30% of the front yard area can be converted to parking. So if a driveway is expanded, the driveway would not be able to take up more than 30% of the area to preserve landscaping. And finally, ingress and egress would have to be via an approved driveway. In certain areas, no new curb cuts would be permitted for an accessory dwelling, so the driveway would have to be, access would have to be via an approved driveway. And no parking would be allowed within any portion of the city right-of-way, including the sidewalk or parkways. The state law includes a provision that if an existing garage is demolished, parking may be replaced at any location on the property in side yard, rear yard, or in tandem configuration. And for design, the ADU has to be architecturally compatible with the primary dwelling in terms of design, building materials, roof pitch, and exterior finishes to ensure neighborhood compatibility. For impact fees, an ADU shall not be considered new development for the assessment of impact fees, including water and sewer. And for utilities, if the unit is constructed within the footprint of an existing home or a detached structure, no connection fee or capacity charge will be assessed for water and sewer. And if it's a new detached or an attached unit, no sewer fee would be assessed. A water meter upsizing fee would be assessed based on the need to upsize the water meter, and that would be a prorated fee. And no new separate utility connection would be required. To ensure compliance with the conditions of approval, the ordinance would require that a covenant be recorded with the following conditions: that the unit is not intended for separate sale, that the unit may serve as a rental unit but shall not be rented short-term for less than 31 days, and parking that is required parking shall be maintained and shall not be used for other purposes. And I'd like to note that there is also some optional provisions, and one of them is the state does allow an owner occupancy requirement. Staff is not recommending the inclusion of that at this time. The Planning Commission considered the request on April 24th and recommended approval with a 7-0 vote. The Planning Commission's motion included revisions to staff's recommendation that included a recommendation to prohibit short-term rental of both the accessory dwelling and the primary dwelling, that either the ADU or the the primary home shall be owner occupied by the property owner, and that no parking shall be allowed in the front yard. In response to the first item, staff has included the prohibition on short-term rentals for the ADU, but at this time is not recommending a prohibition on short-term rental of the primary dwelling, as that could be addressed through a future short-term rental ordinance. The staff is also not recommending an owner occupancy requirement, as enforcement would be difficult and it would place an unreasonable burden on property owners who may not live at the property or have to move for various reasons. And to address parking not allowed in the front yard, the ordinance does prohibit parking in landscape areas, so it would have to be on an approved driveway. Staff presented the proposal to the Housing Commission on May 23rd as an informational item and essentially answered questions from the commissioners. The revisions to the ADU law are intended to reduce regulatory barriers and costs associated with the construction of ADUs and to encourage the establishment of ADUs as affordable housing in California. This zone amendment will bring the ADU ordinance into compliance with state law and will also implement the goals and policies of the housing element by providing a source of affordable housing. And the ADUs will also be counted as part of the regional housing needs assessment, which is a state requirement. The ordinance will also, by including the optional provisions and the development standards, the ordinance will ensure that it will protect the character of existing neighborhoods. In conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council introduce an ordinance amending Article 30, Section 3006 of the 1992 and downtown zoning ordinances, and adopt a resolution establishing the amended text of Article 30, Section 3006 as part of the implementing documents of the local coastal program. To establish revised accessory dwelling regulations conforming to the provisions of Government Code Section 65852. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. We do have some questions. Thank you. Public?
We have 4 requests to speak. How much? This is a public hearing, so we have 4 speakers who have signed up. If you haven't signed up to speak, you may do so after the citizens who have scheduled to speak have spoken. How much time? 3. And you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So once you've started speaking, you'll have 3 minutes. The yellow light will go on when you have 1 minute left. When the red light comes on, please wrap up your comments. Thank you. The first speaker we have is KOCT, and after that, Jane Marshall. If you could adjust your microphone.
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that better? All right. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is KOCT, and I live at 4283 Alta Vista Court, 92057, with my fiance, Adrian King, our almost 2-year-old daughter, and my mom, Cindy Conser. We're new to Oceanside, but I'm a San Diego native, and I know that this is where I want to raise my family. When we were searching for our forever home, we knew that we wanted good schools, a backyard, and a multi-generational floor plan. We ultimately decided on a lot large enough to accommodate an accessory dwelling unit or a granny flat, but we were shocked to find out from the planning department that this was going to cost us nearly $11,000 in impact fees. So to put that into perspective, we're looking at about $16,000 in building plan check and impact fees for a 1-person, 375 square foot granny flat that's intended to cost $80,000 to $90,000 to design and construct. The 375 square feet is about 15 by 25, or the size of a decent 1-car garage. Fees that increase the project cost by 20% strike me as disproportionate and out of line with the latest California ADU legislation. We're families, not a big budget developer, and these fees could make ADU projects cost prohibitive. It's especially concerning as the home is less than 15 years old and hefty impact fees were assessed at the time of the original build. As you know, SB 1069 provides that the fees can only be proportionate to the burden of the unit. And some city councils in the U.S. are voting to waive these fees altogether. I ask that this council consider the same. Consider what benefits can come from an increase in affordable housing. Consider the relief and improved quality of life that ADUs can offer to seniors, adult children living at home, and disabled family members. And consider the environmental impact of physically bringing our villages closer together. My mom recently retired, and she'll be our primary child care after my son is born and I return to work this fall. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that my kids are going to grow up with grandma's house just a few steps away. I believe that by waiving the impact fees for ADUs, even on a temporary basis, and making them more accessible, that the city of Oceanside will set an example for other California cities and show that we support families of all kinds. Thank you.
Jane Marshall.
Hi, good evening, everyone, council, community. My name is Jane Marshall. I'm a 32-year resident, avid volunteer, investor, and business owner here in Oceanside. Tonight I'm representing Oceanside Coastal Neighborhood Association, otherwise known as OCNA. We want to address the ADUs. First of all, before I begin, I want to acknowledge that staff has done a really good job because the way it's written is kind of vague, and I believe that much of what they've done is really good at refining it so that it works for Oceanside. The one area that our group, representing the Seaside neighborhood, is concerned about is that they did not suggest or recommend that the both dwelling units be 30-plus days. This is significant, and I'll tell you why. The intent of this law by the state is to allow for more long-term housing for residents, for people that can't find places to live. And they go through all these different kinds of demographics, et cetera. However, what will occur, as we all know, what happens with unintended consequences, is that it's likely that if they're not both required to be 30-plus, 31-day rentals, one will ultimately become a short-term rental, while perhaps the owner or current primary resident renter is not required to be there more than 30 days. So OCNA Group strongly, strongly, strongly recommends that in addition to everything good that the staff has done right now, that you add to it that both dwellings need to be 30-plus days. This will ensure that Oceanside is complying with the full intent of the state mandate and not creating loopholes for aggressive and inventive owners and others to take advantage of this unique and important mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Hamilton.
Good evening, council members. I would like to also compliment staff on their including a number of revisions to this ordinance. I'm one of the people who'd like to take advantage of this granny flat opportunity because my house was built in 1928. I intended to buy it as a forever house, but having taken care of my sister in a wheelchair, I realized that I couldn't possibly live in that house in a wheelchair. That would mean that I could build a granny flat, and I'm a granny, behind the house that would accommodate my developing infirmities if that happens. So I'm in favor of the granny flats. One thing that I really would like you to pay close attention to is the question of parking. And staff did recommend no parking in the front yard. I strongly recommend that you put that in the ordinance because we already have people parking in their front yards. And if it isn't a strong part of the ordinance where people will say, oh, well, I can park on the, unfortunately called, parking strip between the sidewalk and the yard. If you put the ordinance, the no parking in the front yard, regardless of the fact that there is an approved driveway, in the ordinance, then we have some way of calling code enforcement and saying these people are parking in the front yard. If it's not part of the ordinance, then there's no grounds for calling code enforcement and having a chance of them coming out and enforcing that. It will change the whole look of the neighborhoods if people start parking in the front yard, and a lot of people do want to park in the front yard in other parts of town, and I would hate to see that happen in Seaside, where currently no one's parking in the front yard. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Bachman.
Hello, Joan Bachman, also in the Seaside neighborhood. Again, thanks to staff for answering my many emails. And yes, I have read all of the information. Seaside neighborhood is here because we're one of those neighborhoods that's about to be destroyed. Just like City Heights, just like Normal Heights, just like Kensington, all the different places in San Diego that were once very proud neighborhoods that did get ruined a lot of times by additional density. So while we're not opposed to the ADU and we fully understand the housing crisis, certain things are not helpful. Short-term residents do nothing for the housing crisis. So that should not be part of it. So both the main house and the rental unit need to both be longer than 31 days. And I believe it said 31, not 30. So they need to be longer than that, mainly because they don't help. We also need to maintain, we have some rules in place, the no parking on the front yard and things like that, but our rules aren't good enough. We hear this all the time. People do park in that area. People are paving their front yards. I'm going to make a list of all the places where there have been things approved that shouldn't have been approved, and I want to go over that with staff and come back with, okay, all of this has already happened. We had alley access. They let driveway cuts in on Clementine and Washington. Clementine and Minnesota, they have paved the front yard with beautiful tiles, but it's still paved. So, and we have absolutely nothing protecting our parkways. So these are the problems that we have and the things that are going to lead to a degradation of our neighborhood. One of the things about our neighborhood is our tree-lined streets. That's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes people want to live there. And also having those sidewalks that go down with no driveways makes it perfect for raising kids. I raise my kids there. It's a wonderful place. It's very safe. They go up and down the sidewalk. They can play in the front yards. And to have driveway cuts is a real problem. So I want you to use creative street parking strategies to increase landscaping and at the same time do traffic calming. We have a great opportunity here to put more teeth into the parkways, which nobody can find a place for me to do that. I've been asking staff for a very long time about that. I would like them in this ordinance that is an important part and cannot be breached because they occur where there are alleys. So all parking should be on the alleys, and anytime someone does one of these, rather than letting them have the existing driveways, we should be healing that parkway. They should be moving toward the alley for any required parking, not in the front at all, and we should be healing the breach. So please put some creative strategies into this. Thank you.
Thank you. CM Rocco.
Honorable Deputy Lowry and council members, my name is Cindy Rocco. I live in South Oceanside. And I just wanted to make a couple points about the ADUs and the current ordinance before you. I also concur that both units should be not short-term, eligible for short-term rental. I would prefer that one of the units was owner-occupied. Also, I think that right now, instead of waiting for an ADU rules and regulations, to include that in today's ordinance and not leave that to the side with a short-term rental ordinance. Also, I have a huge concern about the parking, and I understand outside of a transit stop that it can be, there would be one parking per one bedroom. these can be as large as 1,200 square feet, which is bigger than my house, which is only 2 bedrooms, and this could obviously be 3+ bedrooms. If the owner decided not to, if the owner's current house was decided to be made the ADU, then what we would have is, and they would bypass the parking requirements net, is that, hang on one second. Let's say it is near a transit stop. Then you could have a 3-bedroom unit, and that would be not 3 parking spaces, that would be 0. So obviously there will be a huge net impact to the parking within the neighborhoods. Also, I think that we should clearly define transit stops. Right now, I believe the frequency, the requirement is every 15 minutes, and there is not a very good expansion of hours of operation. So I believe that right now it should be clarified if there's going to be an ADU that's built close to a transit station, that transit stop meet those minimum requirements to make it a frequent stop. And we don't have that right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna McGinty?
Thank you for letting me speak. I don't think the intent of the ADU ordinance is to necessarily do a lot of what I'm hearing. And I don't believe everyone who should has read the ordinance and understand parking issues and the number of people in a bedroom or what they can do with the lot and parking or they really don't seem to have read what they're talking about in our ordinance. I have a neighbor who has a young daughter with a child and is thrilled to death because they can add an ADU unit on a young working mom's opportunity and put it on their own property and live in a home where they can share their lifestyle and costs with their own family. And I think that's what the intent of this is, outside of providing some well-needed low-income living area for not just anyone, but particularly I think it's an interesting aspect for family. And some of them are additional income opportunities for folks who are in fixed incomes, and I think that's a great opportunity as well. And thank you for all the work you've done, and staff for all the work you've done. I listened to you guys a couple of times now, and I really like what you've done. Thanks.
At this time, anybody who has not submitted a speaker slip who would like to speak on this item is welcome to come up.
Deputy Mayor, Council members, Jimmy Lot 127, Sherry Lane. First off, I want to thank staff. You did an excellent job taking and bringing this forward to the public and hearing what the public has said, especially clearing up issues with mobile home parks and RVs, saying that they will not be considered as ADUs. And I thought that was very good. Thank you. And second thing is that as an example, at the Del Mar concert this last Friday, concerns were voiced to me about the number of people in these ADUs. Will that be considered, or will they just be overloaded? Utility capacity issues. Has that, or will that be considered? Another issue that was brought to my attention, not there but elsewhere, was increased impermeability index and that effect on the watersheds and that downstream flooding risk. Will that be increased because of the excess building, taking and paving over, building over land that will take and normally drains down to the subterranean area? That was brought up. Another issue that was brought up that I thought was really good to me was other communities are thinking about developing ADU clusters to take and address homeless issues. Is this something that we may want to consider? And an issue that was brought up in a different situation in a casual conversation was about transit stops. If you compare transit stops now and offerings and frequencies, here in Oceanside alone, in the last 25 years, we've had a 70% drop. So whatever is being considered now, if you're taking those figures and working with those figures now, like if we took those figures and look at those plans that we made years ago, 25 years ago, they're not valid now. Will this be reevaluated on a yearly level? You know, this needs to be looked at in what is a transit stop now as compared to the future. Because a lot of our plans that we made 25 years ago are not valid now, but we're still going and using them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this item? Deputy Mayor?
Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you. I do have some questions. First of all, have you anticipated how many new housing units may be generated with these changes?
Deputy Mayor and council members, we have not projected out, but we do have numbers on the number of ADUs that we have approved since 2009. We could give that kind of information to
But
you.
I do remember that that was in the staff report, something, what was that again? Something like 60 or
I think we've had 41 applications, but that's not necessarily construction. So I think the
Right.
actual constructed units is less than that. 33 is constructed units.
33, okay. So we don't know how many units, since the goal here from the state was to address housing crisis and so to try to increase residential units within the local community. So we don't have a sense of how many that would be.
We have not done any projection
Okay.
out. We
What
can
about-
say that we've had a uptick in interest.
Okay.
I think part of that is with this ordinance and the state legislation in general.
Have you been monitoring demand? Like, say, I know one person indicated that, that the fees might be something that would be prohibitive. Had you noticed that before, that might be the reason why we don't have more? I mean, this is really waiving a lot of those fees, so. Because it's not considered new construction.
Councilmember Sanchez, we have seen an increase in inquiries regarding accessory dwellings, and two of the main issues were the fees as well as meeting the development standards, and the most restrictive was parking. Under the previous ordinance, we required parking be provided on site outside of the setback areas, including the driveway. So with the new ordinance allowing tandem parking or parking on approved driveway, as well as the waivers, it does relieve that burden. And as far as fees, we have heard that impact fees are also prohibitive on the cost of them is excessive for the cost in relation to the cost of the unit. So staff's recommendation does include that we would
Lower
not
costs.
impose impact fees on an ADU.
Right. Why exempt fire sprinklers if the existing does not have fire sprinklers? I would think that would be a public safety issue.
Councilmember Sanchez, that's mandated by the state legislation.
Right. It doesn't seem to have been a right thing to do, though. For me, it's really kind of odd. That's yours, too. And the state law does allow for maximum units, the maximum size, I guess, and that's not something that you suggested. I mean, they do have that you can do up to 150 square feet, right, for the efficiencies, but there's nothing in here about maximum.
Councilmember Sanchez, the maximum size for a detached unit will be 1,200 square feet, and an attached unit is either 50% of the square footage of the living area of the primary home, up to 1,200 square feet. And an efficiency unit is, we will have to allow at minimum a 150 square foot efficiency unit.
Right.
Cities and counties are no longer allowed to exclude ADUs citywide, so they have to allow at least an efficiency unit within the footprint of an existing
An
home
efficiency
structure.
unit, is that like 1 or 2 people? Is there a limit on how many people can live in an efficiency?
Yes, Councilmember Sanchez, the efficiency unit is defined by the Health and Safety Code and is permitted for occupancy by no more than 2 persons.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Sanchez, to follow up on your question about the size limits, there is size limitations in our ordinance. It starts at the bottom of page 3, and most of it's at the top of page 4.
Okay.
Describes the square footage
Must have somehow missed
maximums.
that. Okay. There was a question about the fees, and I read the report basically indicating that because of state law, we're not going to be collecting certain fees, and so the permit fee is what we would be collecting, and that's something like for the 1,200, I think it was, oh, let's see. For the 1,200, it was 8,800. And then it sounded like we're actually taking a hit on the fees because we're not able to collect other fees, but that because there will be new units built, we will hopefully in the long run, property values increasing would be somehow collecting in terms of property taxes. Is that generally what you meant by this in the report? Are the fees that were expressed in here basically fees for work actually done? Is it very close to net neutral?
Councilmember Sanchez, the idea on reducing the fees was in response to facilitating these ADUs to accomplish the goals that the state legislature has laid out. As Rob mentioned, we have had a number of people express concerns that the impact fees or hookup fees are an impediment to these ADUs.
Okay, so in your response to the person who spoke and said, what was it? I think she said 12,000, which she thought would probably for her plans, that's how much it would cost. What would be your response to that? As to whether or not that's something that is too high?
I'm not sure exactly what her figures were. Again, our response would be we're recommending a reduction in the fees or no fees in order to facilitate more ADUs.
Right.
In response to an earlier question on demand, we did hold a community meeting, and I believe over 20 people showed up, and we had 12 speakers, and all 12 speakers were in favor of actually facilitating these ADUs and recommended that we facilitate them more or seek additional facilitation.
Are any of the fees that are being proposed excessive in terms of not being net neutral? In other words, we're not subsidizing and we're also not making money off of this.
Councilmember Sanchez, we haven't done an analysis on whether the impacts would be net neutral or not.
What do you calculate the fees then based on? Hours for review and to be able to issue the permit, right?
Are you talking about the application fee or the impact fees?
The
or connection
permit?
fees?
Building permit?
The building permit fees are based on the building department's review and costs regarding building plan
Right.
Approval.
And our policy is to try to be as net neutral as possible, right? Has been.
Councilwoman Sanchez.
Yes.
Deanna Lorson, Assistant City Manager. Yes, the City Council approves our fee schedule based on cost recovery. We do fee studies in order to determine what the actual cost to provide the service is, and the City Council does have a policy to recover the costs, to cover our costs, but we're not allowed to charge more than what our actual cost is.
Yeah, I was trying to respond to the person who spoke and said, well, can you waive these fees for me because they're just excessive? And so I was trying to get to the point where, well, why are we charging these fees in the first place? And they are because of the work that we have to do in order to be able to allow these this building to be done, the permit fees and whatever else needs to be done, right? Yes?
Correct. The fees that we would be charging are the processing fees to cover all of the staff's time to review the plans, to do the inspections, et cetera. And it's based on cost studies demonstrating what it actually costs us to provide those services. The fees that we would no longer be able to collect per state law are the impact fees. Those are fees to provide additional parks, infrastructure, et cetera, which are established through a nexus study. But the state legislatures determined that in order to encourage accessory dwelling units, we are not allowed to collect impact fees on these permits.
In other words, what we're proposing is a reduction in the fees, and I just wanted to make sure that she understood that. Okay. Now, as to the half mile of public transit that we need to exempt in terms of parking requirements, I just want to say that I'm sure that the state tried to come up with something that would be one size fits all, but this doesn't apply to us. I think that we ended up building our mass transit or our Sprinter for our purposes on an existing line, and we did not. We don't have transit going to the hospital. We don't have transit going to the courthouse. We don't have transit going to the shopping mall or the performing arts center, and that, I think, that's why I think this is going to be a hardship on the citizens of Oceanside, but it doesn't look like there's anything that we can do about that. And I think finally I want to ask about the short-term rental, because since the goal is to create new housing, I do feel I do agree with the Oceanside Coastal Neighborhood Association that we should require, and the state does allow us to do that, require that these units not be rented out not less than 31 days. So that's one thing that I would change on this, because I think we would be defeating the purpose of reducing all of these standards, reducing all of these fees, and yet we're not really creating new housing. So that would be my change. I believe the Planning Commission felt that way too and made that recommendation to us. Staff has, there is that. We could also require owner occupancy, but I'm not interested in that. I am interested, however, in the notion that we're supposed to be creating new housing. So I would like us to consider, the council to consider adding that to our ordinance. Thank you.
Councilmember Kern.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Was there a motion in there someplace? No. Okay. There's a couple of issues I have with this. One is the short-term rental issue. You're going to have your choice. Either you have short-term rental, or if you want accessory unit, you're not going to have short-term rentals. The idea that we're here to have permanent housing. So the person who wants these units, they're going to have to make a choice whether they want to keep the existing dwelling as a short-term rental, or they're going to have two long-term rentals. Part of this is the state has screwed up the housing market so much, and they're putting this Band-Aid on it to try to fix it. And they're dumping it on the cities to try to figure it out. In neighborhoods that parking's an issue and all these other issues that we have to accommodate. This is not a way to fix the housing market. This is a way that Sacramento says, oh, this is what we can do, and we'll go home and pat ourselves on the back and feel all happy about it, but it hasn't solved anything. So we're talking about, we're 140,000 housing units short in San Diego County. And we're talking 60, 70 units max probably here in Oceanside, or maybe say 100. It doesn't make a dent. So, you know, the state has screwed it up. The idea that to build a house in Oceanside, and in fact, any place in Southern California, 40 to 45% of the cost are in fees and regulations. Now they're coming in with these little Band-Aids and say, oh, we're going to waive the fees on this one project. You know, yeah, I don't think there should be any impact fees on this because they're basically you're just adding something to the existing line. But the problem is, especially in those older neighborhoods, that you have these sewer lines, and if you get a lot of these accessory units, it's going to over impact the sewer lines. So then we're going to have to go upsize, just like we had to do on the industrial side. So, you know, I'm concerned about that. Obviously, we have to come in compliance with state law. Are we under a timeline on this? Do we have to pass it within a certain period of time? Because I'm not ready to vote on this tonight, because there's a lot of things I'd like to talk about still.
Councilmember Kern and Council, the state law became effective on January 1st, and the state law mandates that we have to process ADUs in compliance with the state law requirements.
By January 1st?
Already, the past January 1st.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm confused. So coming up, January 1st of 18?
No,
or
as of January 1, 2017, the state law was effective that mandates that ADUs be processed in accordance with the state legislation.
That's easy.
What a wonderful state legislature we have, huh? So,
can I speak?
I would offer that if the council wishes to require no short-term rental for both units, that you include that in your introduction of the reading tonight.
I would like to do that. I just feel uncomfortable writing legislation from the
I have
bias.
a sentence for you, Councilmember Kern, that we could add in before I read it into the record if you would like to add that. I think we found the appropriate place where it can go if you want to proceed tonight and add that as a condition.
Yeah, I think so. I think.
And I would second that.
Yeah. So, anything, well, see, and obviously the parking and the fees are a big issue. You know, we want cost recovery. You know, the idea to send an inspector out there to make sure that the dwelling is safe, make sure the dwelling is built correctly. There's a cost to us. That there's a time for that inspector to go out there. There's time in the office where people process the plans. So we need to collect on the building fees. So we have to do that. Now, as far as the impact fees, like the sewer buy-in, the water buy-in fees, I think we can skip those, but you made it sound like those are not included anyway. So we're good on that. So we do need to recover the cost of things that we spend money for, so as much as we can. So I guess I'll make the motion for the zone amendment and the local coastal plan amendment, amending Article 30, Section 3006 of 1992, the downtown zoning ordinance, establishing the amended text of Article 30, and the section of 3006 as part of the implementing documentation of the local coastal program accessing dwelling unit. And the only thing that I would like to add to that is that what we discussed with the city attorney about if you're going to have accessory dwelling units, they cannot be short-term rentals, and the existing house cannot be, or the existing dwelling can't be short-term rentals.
So we could just amend section E3 on page, is that an 8? My eyes are failing me. 8 of Exhibit A, to state that neither the ADU nor the main dwelling unit shall be rented for less than 31 days.
Correct.
Okay, good. And that's the introduction of this ordinance, right?
This will be the introduction. I think we may have some more changes coming, though, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I guess we got a motion and a second?
Second, yeah.
So.
Okay, there are a few more items that were mentioned. Would you bring up image number 9 again? I want to see what the Planning Commission suggested. or commented on, and I want to see how those fit in. Okay, the short-term rentals there. Owner-occupant requirement we can't do. No parking in the front yard. I heard you say that you can cover 30% of the front yard?
No parking in the landscaped area.
30%.
Honorable Deputy Mayor and council members, the provision would limit parking to be no more than 30% of the front yard area, and for substandard lots, that would increase to 50%.
Do you have a comment?
The Planning Commission's comment was specific that they didn't want parking on landscaped areas, grass in particular, and our ordinance covers that. So
we won't
it's
be
addressed.
allowing parking in the front yard, even though there's some percentage numbers that would allow it.
The ordinance allows parking in front yards. The state legislation mandates that we have to allow parking in setbacks. But if the setback is landscaped, then the ordinance prohibits that.
So they can pull it out and do beautiful tile pavement on their formerly landscaped grass lawn?
Up to 30%.
15 or 30%.
Yes.
That's a state mandate.
Wow. It's going to be looking good in neighborhoods that have no yards like mine. There are no yards in these neighborhoods around here right now. So we can still, they can put, that would be a small lot, so 15% of the landscaped front yard could be paved over then.
Up to 30%, according to the way the ordinance is drafted. We were trying to offer some protection for landscaping and respond to the Planning Commission, while at the same time we have to honor the state mandate that parking is allowed in a front setback.
So is there no way we can state that we don't want any parking on the landscaped area in the front yard, period?
The ordinance, Deputy Mayor, the ordinance as drafted does restrict that. It's just that if the parking is not landscaped, if the area is not landscaped, then up to 30% of it, there can be parking within that. Again, the state law mandates that parking be allowed for ADUs in setbacks.
So I have an example of this 2 blocks from where I live. The people paved half of their front yard already, and they use it to park a second vehicle. And the lot's small, but they have a driveway with a single-car garage, and they want to park also, and it's literally at their front door. It's not near the front door. It's at the front door because it's a shallow lot, and they paved it right up to the front door. And is that current? Would that be allowed in what we're proposing?
You said half the lot, so no, 50% would not be allowed. This would be maximum of 30%.
So is the city prepared to go out there and measure these things? Because I've already seen that happen in a bunch of locations. I can't imagine.
Well, I'd be happy to schedule an agenda item on enforcement for another night.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my next question is curb cuts. Are those covered in anything that came up already? What is the status, actually real practical status of curb cuts either being added or widened or removed if they build additional dwelling units on their property?
Deputy Mayor, any new curb cuts would have to be approved under current city standards. In areas that are served by alley access, there is a city code that prohibits new curb cuts from being provided on the street side, and alley access is required for any new access. If they meet the requirements of if they are looking at expanding the driveway, they would need to apply for an encroachment permit and meet standards of the transportation department.
Okay, and I have a question for Joan Bachman. It's 2 questions, but 1 question. And it's just going to be a yes or no. So you said something about trees and sidewalks. You know, you can say it in the microphone if you want, or you can just scream it from your seat. Probably not a good idea. So I didn't understand what you meant about trees. All I wrote down was trees, yes, and sidewalks. You're talking about the curb cut allowing a driveway over the sidewalk, and you think that's not a good idea if they have alley access. And what do you think about widening out the existing curb cuts from 10 or 12 feet to 16 or 18 feet?
No, they should be heeled and closed,
Removed is
not
a good
extended.
word, because we can't do any healing. So you're suggesting that the allowance, that we currently allow do we allow the driveway apron to be widened out for this additional parking in the new regs?
I don't believe the regs address the width of the driveway.
Okay. Don't go away, John. Thank you. Sorry.
That would be, Deputy Mayor, that would be a staff review. The ordinance doesn't specify the width of a driveway for an ADU, but as Rob mentioned, if there's alley access, the city code already requires that the access come off the alley.
And then the curb cut would be removed and the apron would be removed, and so you would have a sidewalk there and more landscape area in what's called a parkway, euphemistically.
If Deputy Mayor, if there's already an access from the street, a curb cut, we would assume that's for an existing garage. I couldn't imagine why there would be a curb cut otherwise. We don't think it'd be right to remove the access to that garage just because an ADU is being built that has access off the alley. So we don't support the idea that if you approve an ADU with access off the alley, you have to retire a curb cut on the street.
So it seems that we are willing to pave over our existing neighborhoods so that we can have more cars parked in what was the front yard, but because we're adding an additional dwelling unit in the back that may have alley access, we're allowing more parking from the back as well. So if there's an existing 1 or 2 car garage, they can still use what they have for access right now. For example, my neighbors they're all 1 car garages where I live. And there's a couple of 2s. They're full of junk. They're not using them. But we have a driveway that comes out from the front. We have an alley in the back in some of the yards, in some of the houses. So they can do a new unit in the back and build that and leave their existing one in the front. That's going to happen a lot in this neighborhood here.
As the ordinance is constructed and as I understand the state law, yes, that scenario would occur or could occur.
Okay. What about trees? I didn't understand you were talking about doing a traffic calming element by planting more trees and expanding or changing the parking as it is now on the street. It's plural streets.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're not protected now, the parkways.
Okay, so what you're saying is you have a concern that we're just going to pave everything in our existing neighborhoods around here. That would be Coastal, up in Loma Alta, Fire Mountain, everywhere. Everything's going to be paved over. They're going to pull out trees like they attempted to do on Leonard Street, where they wanted to pull a palm tree out, but people thought it was an historical element of the city and their neighborhood in particular, so they reconfigured the driveway. Why are you smirking?
Greenbrier Street just paved over all their parkways.
Oh, Greenbrier Street.
It's happening everywhere per city code. There is no protection, and there needs to be.
Okay.
And it has to go somewhere.
Thank you.
Where are we going to do it?
Yes, thank you for following up on that. So, okay. Well, I can't at all approve this as it is right now. Councilmember Kern.
Just to follow up on the Deputy Mayor's comment, some of these places you talk about, okay, the garage, but okay, so if they convert the garage into an accessory dwelling unit and they have to replace that garage, and in some of these areas, they would replace them on the alley. So they would no longer need a curb cut off the street to a garage that doesn't exist. So would we require them to heal that curb cut?
If there's no longer a need for the curb cut from the main street and there's alley access, it's conceivable that we would.
Okay, but that would have to be in the original permitting process because we would not allow them to build the accessory unit until they bring plans for the replacement garage at the same time. Is that correct?
I think we would look at it as case by case, and the ordinance can't conceive of every possible scenario out there.
Okay. Well, yeah, because when the Deputy Mayor was talking, I started going through some of the inventory of some of those houses down there that they've already converted their garages into rooms, and basically they park in their old driveways, but there is no access to a garage. So I'm just, the neighborhood is unique, and so I'm concerned about that, so hopefully on a case-by-case basis, I think you get the sense of the council, what they're looking for. So hopefully that, when somebody brings one of these forwards, that you can relay to them that we're going to try to take that curb cut away if they're going to convert and build a garage off the alley. So, thank you.
Councilmember Feller? Nothing? Okay, one moment, just a second. So I would like to add that I am completely in favor of the additional dwelling units. I am completely opposed to paving over more and more of what we have created for cars. If people want to do them without bringing in more cars, we can't enforce that. There's no way to enforce it. I completely support the idea of a 31-day minimum for both dwellings, and I would just love to build a 1,200 square foot house behind my 850 square foot house and rent them both out and not live there. So, thank you.
This is the introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Oceanside amending Article 30, Section 3006 of the 1992 and Downtown Zoning Ordinances to establish revised accessory dwelling unit regulations conforming to the provisions of Government Code Section 65852.2 with the additional sentence that I previously read into the record on Section E 3 on page 8 of Exhibit A.
Please vote.
Motion passes 3-1. Deputy Mayor Lowry, no.
Thank you. Next item, wine tasting. Are we going to have samples? Wait, I'm sorry. Item number 37, wine tasting approval for Apothecary Wine Lounge.
Yes. Adoption of a resolution approving a conditional use permit, RCUP 17-00001, and a regular coastal permit, RRP 17-00002, to allow the conversion of a 1,139 square feet of spa area into a wine tasting lounge and associated retail sales area located at 322 North Cleveland Street within the non-appealable jurisdiction of the California Coastal Commission. Apothecary Wine Lounge, applicant, Apothecary Lifestyle Spa, LLC.
Disclosures?
Thank you, Head Staff, and I briefly spoke with them, but I know exactly where they're trying to go with this, so thank you.
Staff and I went to the site several times.
Very familiar with the site.
Staff and I actually helped the applicant kind of wind her way through the bureaucracy of the ABC. So very familiar with the site and also talking to staff.
Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Deputy Mayor Lowry, distinguished council members. I'm Richard Greenbauer here to present one of our very successful downtown businesses proposal, the Apothecary Lifestyle Spa, and the request to create a wine lounge as part of their experience. The proposal in front of you today is a reallocation of approximately 539 square feet of interior space of the existing spa and then utilization of 600 square feet of the exterior patio area for the wine lounge, and that's going to allow for some retail sales focused on local wineries. So it's a very simplistic project, small in nature, and the applicant has worked with staff as well as OPD to ensure that it is a good fit for the surrounding community. They have very limited hours, odd days of operation, Wednesday through Sunday from 6 to 10 p.m. The location of the Apothecary Wine Lounge would be at the rear of the existing, what we refer to as the Historic Travelers Hotel. The business has been in existence for a number of years, very successful, and once again, just adding another aspect to their spa treatments and the experience there. The location is at 322 Cleveland in the downtown district within Subdistrict 1A. The application was reviewed by our Downtown Advisory Committee, and in a 8-0 vote, they fully supported the request and asked that the recommendation of approval of a conditional use permit and regular coastal permit be brought in front of this body. During the public input, the applicant did hold a public outreach meeting on site. They're very It's very well received. Staff has received no letters of opposition to date and fully supports the applicant's request for a conditional use permit. With that, staff will close my presentation with the recommendation that you adopt the resolution approving the conditional use permit, regular coastal permit, and allow the conversion of the 1,139 square feet of the existing spa into the wine lounge and retail sales area. I'm available for any questions, should there be any.
We'll come up with something. Just have a seat there on the side.
And we do have the applicant in attendance this evening if you'd like a presentation or some discussion from them.
Can you put that original image back up there, the logo or the building, either one of those? Exterior. That's good enough. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak on this item may do so now.
Can I talk? Actually, the applicant, since this is a public hearing on a land use project, the applicant has 20 minutes. If you care to use it, you don't have to. But it's your opportunity to speak first.
Thank you, John.
Hello, Mayor and Council people. Thank you very much. We're very excited about this opportunity. I know that we have had many of outreach programs, and we've had a lot of the council members come to our facility and also the public. We wanted to just thank you all and also say that when we had our outreach program to introduce the idea, we could not offer any even free wine. It was the ABC that had contacted us and told us that that was not going to be allowed. So if you would like to come and be at the most beautiful building, I believe, in downtown Oceanside, which is the historic Bunker House, and have a glass of wine and be in community and share your thoughts, that would be something that we would like very much if you would approve this conditional use permit. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor and all the council members. Our goal with this very unique building here is to create a thriving, healing community in Oceanside. So the lifestyle spa that we currently operate offers a lot of healing therapies, and we believe socializing and sharing experiences and just sitting over a glass of wine with someone else, it's part of that experience of healing, of social life, of community, and it'll just integrate with everything else that the branding stands for. So people come in and they have their treatments, but they don't have a space where they can sit down and actually experience with other people and build that community and bridge that missing gap. So it would be really important for our branding, our vision, our mission, and we believe also with the community of Oceanside, just to create more of that integration. And again, like she said, like Michelle shared, the building is really unique. Everybody that comes in shares with us, I love the energy of this building. This looks so amazing. You know, I want to live here. I want to come here every day. So we want to be able to share that with everyone and just open. The space is there, and we can best utilize it. So we appreciate your thoughts and your concerns here, and we'll be here to answer any questions, any doubts that you might have. Thank you.
Now, anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this item may do so at this time. No public, Deputy Mayor.
Councilmember Sanchez. Oops,
Public hearing is closed.
It is.
Yeah. This is the most wonderful building in Oceanside. No, I've always loved the Travelers Hotel. You guys rock. I wish you so much luck in including this as part of your business. I move adoption.
I'll second. I've been working on this project for about 8 or 9 months to help her with the bureaucracy that we seem to create to actually have good businesses in town. I am disappointed it doesn't have a cigar bar, but yeah, I think I've lost that battle years ago. So I think we're going to have to just go forward with wine right now. So I'd like to second this, and hopefully she's very successful, and hopefully come to the grand opening when everything gets done. So I'd appreciate to be there. Maybe the treasurer and I will come by and sneak a cigar out on the street or something like that. Of course, we're afraid the black and whites will come by when we're out there, but we'll We'll go. Thank you.
Okay. Please vote.
Please vote. Motion passes 4-0.
Take a break. Yeah, we have to take a 5-minute break right now. Thank you. So please enjoy the drinking water, the restrooms. We got all those things out there. So just go outside, turn right up the steps, restroom and drinking water.
Tremendous employees here at Tri-City, working every day and doing everything they possibly can to improve care to make it safer in a very complex and difficult environment.
Being 6 years free of a central line infection is unheard of. We went to an international conference and the feedback we got from nurses across the world was amazing. They all wanted to hear our process and hear how on earth did you do that.
Everyone is diligent. We've done a whole culture change, which is really key to our success here.
We do daily huddles, patient safety symposiums. We do a lot of education out to the staff to make them aware how they can help us make things safer by talking to us.
So I feel very fortunate and very lucky to work at an organization that not only supports a culture of safety, but actually looks at the nurses. It's not a choice for us. It's not an option. It's 100% what's best for the patient.
We're continuously educating staff about the importance of reporting near misses or close calls, and it's a much safer environment.
KOCT, North County's channel, has helped provide local television programming since 1984. KOCT is an independent, nonprofit educational media outlet that focuses on topics and issues of importance to North San Diego County residents. Your tax-deductible donation will ensure that KOCT can continue covering local events. KOCT also provides real-world television training and experience for interns and volunteers. Go to www.koct.org or call 760-722-4433 to donate now or become a friend for year-round giving. Thank you for your support.
Use motor oil or cocktail of toxins. Dispose carefully, you got lots of options. Never the trash, the drain, or the ground. That's insane and it ain't safe and sound. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city. Oceanside is a zero waste city.
Recycle used oil and filters at certified collection points in Oceanside. For locations, see greenoceanside.org.
Oceanside Spectrum is a unique talk show that seeks to shine light on local nonprofit organizations in San Diego's North County. Guests from these nonprofits are interviewed by host Elaine Swan about upcoming events, volunteer opportunities, and much more. Oceanside Spectrum airs Monday through Friday on Channel 18 at 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. If your nonprofit organization would like to promote an upcoming event, attract new members, or share your good works, please call 760-722-4433 or email us at koct@koct.org.
I'm wanted.
I'm wanted.
I'm wanted.
I'm wanted.
Volunteers wanted.
There's a place for everyone.
Nobody can do everything,
but everyone can do something.
Your experiences and expertise can help to advise the council on various matters.
Whatever your interests are,
there is a place. There is a place.
There is a place.
There's a place for you.
Apply today for one of the city's committees, board or commissions.
Whatever your interests are, there is a place for you.
For more information and applications, call the City Clerk Department at 760-435-3000 or visit the city's website.
Volunteers.
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 Volunteers are the heart of the community.
My name is Andrea Lee Greenberg. I walk for Autism Speaks because my son Tyler is the single most important person in my life. Walk Now for Autism Speaks raises awareness every time a city puts on a walk. It is a terrific way to come together as a community, to reach out to one another, to get the message out that these children and these adults are incredible human beings.
To find a walk near you, visit walknowforautismspeaks.org.
The YMCA is a great place for Anaya to get all her energy out, to play with friends, and have a great time. Every time I come to the YMCA, the staff is super nice, polite. They always greet me and Anaya, and they know her name. And I just feel really welcome here.
What's neat about the Y is that everything is adapted to whatever need you have and whatever level you're at. And you never feel like you're not achieving, because someone was always there, especially the trainers are there to always encourage you.
I'm there 5 days a week, taking either classes or being in the fitness center, alternating between cardio and weights. So it is just like home to me, and I just love being here.
I started coming here about 6 years ago. I've lost about 110 pounds. I work out in the gym, I come to the classes, but mostly I work out in the gym. It's been able to give me time for myself, a safe and fun place for my kids to go, a big community where I've seen lots of my other friends, my mom friends, and my kids have seen their friends, and it's been an amazing experience. I love it.
Tri-City Medical Center, a leader in advanced healthcare close to home.
I've completed 8 Ironman races until a ruptured herniated disc caused me debilitating pain.
I performed a successful microdiscectomy on Kathleen.
But I did not want to run anymore. I didn't want to risk pain again. After time, I needed an Ironman-sized dream, so I returned to triathlons.
I worked with Kathleen to help her regain her strength.
Thank you, Tri-City Medical Center, for your incredible orthopedic work.
Tri-City Medical Center, advanced healthcare for you.